Out of his mouth go burning torches. Sparks of fire leap forth. Out of his nostrils comes smoke, as from a boiling pot and burning rushes. His breath kindles coals, and a flame comes forth from his mouth. This isn't a description of a dragon from a fantasy novel. It's a direct quote from the book of Job, one of the oldest texts in the Bible. It's a description of a real creature. A creature God himself challenges Job to face. For 2,000 years we've called it a myth, a metaphor for chaos, an exaggerated tale of a crocodile or a whale. But what if we were wrong? What if the ancient authors were describing something they had actually seen? A living, breathing monster from the deep, so terrifying it shattered their understanding of the natural world. In the last few decades, digging in the deserts of the world, we have unearthed the bones of prehistoric sea monsters that defy belief. And one of them, a true titan of the ancient oceans, matches the biblical description with such chilling accuracy that it forces us to ask a terrifying question. Could ancient man have encountered a living relic from a lost age? A creature we now know was the apex predator of all time? And if so, could its unique biology finally explain the one part of the legend that has always been dismissed as pure fantasy, its breath of fire and smoke? The answer is far more shocking than you can imagine, and the evidence is buried not just in ancient scripture, but in solid stone. This is the story of Leviathan. To understand the sheer terror this creature represented, we have to go to the source. Not to a retelling but to the original ancient text in the book of Job, chapter 41. After Job, a righteous man, has lost everything and questions the justice of God, God answers him from a whirlwind. He doesn't offer comfort. He offers a display of power. He points to his two greatest creations, Behemoth on the land, and in the sea, a creature so mighty that the very sight of it is overwhelming. He asks Job, "Can you draw out Leviathan with a fishhook? Or press down his tongue with a cord? Will he make a covenant with you, to take him as your servant forever?" The tone is almost mocking. God is saying, "You think you understand power? You have never seen power." He describes the beast's physical form, and it's unlike anything in our modern world. His back is made of rows of shields shut up closely as with a seal. One is so near to another that no air can come between them. They are joined one to another. They clasp each other and cannot be separated. This isn't the skin of a whale or the hide of a crocodile, which can be pierced. This is described as interlocking, impenetrable armor, like the scales of a mythical dragon, or the plating of a warship. Ancient weapons, spears and arrows would be useless. The text confirms this. Though the sword reaches him, it does not avail, nor the spear, the dart or the javelin. He counts iron as straw, and bronze as rotten wood. Imagine being an ancient fisherman in a wooden boat, seeing a creature surface that treats your strongest weapons like toys. The psychological impact would be absolute. Then there are the creature's eyes and face. His sneezes flash forth light, and his eyes are like the eyelids of the dawn. This poetic language paints a picture of a creature that seems to glow with an internal, fearsome energy. When it surfaces, its eyes are the first thing to break the dawn's light on the water. Its very presence illuminates the dark. And its mouth is the stuff of nightmares. Around his teeth is terror. God isn't just saying it has sharp teeth. He's saying the very sight of its jaws inspires a primal, instinctual fear. This isn't just a big fish. This is a predator designed for ultimate intimidation. For centuries, theologians and scholars have tried to ground this description in reality. The most common candidate proposed is the Nile crocodile. And at first glance you can see why. Crocodiles have armored backs, terrifying teeth, and are formidable aquatic predators. They were well known to the ancient peoples of the Near East. But the theory falls apart under scrutiny. A crocodile's armor, while tough, is not impenetrable to a determined hunter with an iron-tipped spear. They primarily live in rivers and marshes, not the great deep or the sea as Leviathan is described. And most importantly, the book of Job describes a creature that makes the very ocean boil. He makes the deep boil like a pot. He makes the sea like a pot of ointment. He leaves a shining wake behind him. One would think the deep to be white-haired. This describes a creature of immense size and power, moving with such force that it churns the sea into a white foam, far beyond the capabilities of any crocodile. And of course, no crocodile breathes fire. The next candidate is the great whale. Whales are certainly large enough to churn the sea, and some, like the sperm whale, have impressive teeth and dive into the abyssal deep. But again, the description fails to match. Whales have skin, not rows of shields. Their power is immense, but they lack the aggressive, terrifying visage described in Job. The comparison simply doesn't hold. Leviathan is described as a king, a warrior. On earth there is not his like, a creature without fear. He sees everything that is high. He is king over all the sons of pride. This is not just a large animal. This is a monster that actively dominates its environment, a creature that looks upon all other powerful beasts with contempt. This has led most modern scholars to the conclusion that Leviathan isn't a real animal at all, but a purely mythological symbol. They point to the fact that similar chaos serpents exist in older mythologies. The Canaanites told tales of a seven-headed sea monster named Leviathan, whom the storm god Baal defeated. The Babylonians had Tiamat, the primordial goddess of the ocean, who took the form of a massive dragon. The argument is that the Hebrew writers simply borrowed this powerful symbol of chaos and untamed nature and used it to illustrate God's absolute power over creation. In their view, Leviathan is a literary device, a theological symbol, and nothing more. And for a long time, this was the most logical answer. It had to be a myth, because in the known modern animal kingdom, nothing comes close. Nothing has impenetrable scales, teeth that inspire divine terror, and the ability to breathe fire and smoke. It was a closed case. The myth theory was the only one that made sense. Until we started digging. Until paleontology unearthed a world of monsters that our ancestors could never have imagined, but that perfectly matched the monsters they described. We discovered that our planet's history was a parade of horrors, especially in the oceans. The placid seas we know today were once violent hunting grounds for predators that would make a great white shark look like a goldfish. There was the Kronosaurus, a short-necked pliosaur with a 9-foot-long skull and teeth the size of bananas. There was the Basilosaurus, a terrifying serpentine whale, an early ancestor of modern whales that was a vicious hunter, 60 feet long with interlocking teeth for shearing flesh. The prehistoric oceans were a death trap. But even among these titans, one creature stood apart. A marine reptile from the late Cretaceous period that scientists now believe was the most powerful aquatic predator that has ever existed. Its fossilized remains have been found in North America, from the chalk beds of Kansas to the phosphates of Morocco. It wasn't a dinosaur, but a species of aquatic lizard that grew to apocalyptic sizes, some reaching over 55 feet in length. It had a second set of teeth on the roof of its mouth to ensure that once prey was caught, it could never escape. Its body was a torpedo of muscle, and its skull was built like a battering ram. Its scales were heavily keeled and interlocked, forming a flexible but incredibly durable coat of natural armor. It was a creature so dominant, so perfectly engineered for destruction, that it ruled every ocean on Earth. Its name was Mosasaurus, and as we examine its unique anatomy, we find chilling parallels to the biblical Leviathan. The size, the power, the armor, the terrifying teeth, it all begins to line up. But it's one specific discovery about the Mosasaurus, a feature unique to its physiology, that provides a startling and scientifically plausible explanation for the most unbelievable part of the Leviathan legend. The part we have always dismissed as pure fantasy, the fire, the smoke, the breath that kindles coals. The answer lies not in myth, but in a bizarre biological function hidden within its massive skull, a function that could produce a terrifying display of what would look, to any ancient witness, like a monster breathing fire from the depths of hell itself. To understand this, we have to peel back the skin of our prime suspect, the sperm whale. Not just any whale, but a creature so alien, so perfectly adapted to the crushing darkness of the abyss, that its very biology seems to defy the laws of nature as we know them. The head of a sperm whale is a biological masterpiece and an absolute monstrosity. It accounts for up to a third of its entire body length and almost half of its weight. It is, for all intents and purposes, a living, breathing battering ram. But the real secret isn't in the bone. It's in what fills that enormous space. Inside that colossal skull, there isn't a massive brain. Instead, there are two giant oil-filled reservoirs. The largest, sitting on top, is called the spermaceti organ, and beneath it is a smaller reservoir often called the junk. Together, they can hold over 500 gallons of a strange, waxy oil. For centuries, whalers who hunted these animals prized this substance. It was the finest lubricant on Earth, burning with a clean, bright, smokeless flame in their lamps. It was a biological fuel source of unparalleled quality. And that right there, that simple fact is our first clue. The very substance that fills the Leviathan's head is flammable. Now, scientists have long debated the primary purpose of this organ. The leading theory is that it's a sophisticated buoyancy control device. By controlling blood flow to the organ, the whale can cool or heat the wax. When it cools, the wax solidifies and becomes denser, helping the whale sink effortlessly into the crushing depths where its prey, the giant squid, resides. When it's time to surface, the whale floods the area with warm blood, melting the wax, making it less dense, and providing lift for a rapid ascent. It's a work of evolutionary genius. The second theory is that it acts as a powerful acoustic lens. Focusing the whale's sonar clicks into a beam so powerful, it can stun its prey from a distance. A biological sonic cannon. But a third, more controversial theory suggests a far more dramatic purpose, one that aligns perfectly with the ancient texts. What happens when a creature with a 500-gallon tank of flammable, waxy oil in its head needs to create a threat display? What happens when it's cornered, or when it surfaces with explosive force? Imagine the whale, rising from the abyss. It needs to rapidly clear its massive airways. Its single blowhole, located asymmetrically on the left side of its head, is the exhaust port for this entire system. The theory posits that the whale can, under extreme pressure, force a fine atomized mist of this spermaceti oil out of its blowhole along with the blast of superheated air from its lungs. Think of it like a biological aerosol can. You have a propellant, the immense pressure from the whale's respiratory system, and you have a payload, the waxy, flammable oil. When this mixture is ejected at hundreds of miles per hour into the cold sea air, it creates a massive billowing cloud. This isn't just water vapor. It's a cloud of fine, oily particles. Now let's go back to the book of Job, chapter 41. Out of his nostrils goeth smoke, as out of a seething pot or cauldron. A seething pot, a cauldron. That's not the description of a gentle puff of vapor. That is the description of a thick, roiling, substance-filled cloud. The misty spray from a sperm whale's blow can be seen for miles, and it hangs in the air thick and oily. To an ancient mariner, bobbing in a tiny wooden boat, seeing a 60-foot beast surface and unleash a blast that looks and smells like the smoke from a giant boiling pot would be an image of pure terror. But that's just the smoke. Where does the fire come from? Out of his mouth go burning lamps, and sparks of fire leap out. This is where biology gets truly strange. The mechanism for ignition is the most debated part of the theory, but there are several plausible hypotheses. One idea involves static electricity. The rapid, high-pressure expulsion of these particles through the narrow blowhole could generate a significant static charge, just like shuffling your feet on a carpet. A spark generated by this process could ignite the highly flammable, aerosolized oil. Another, perhaps even more compelling theory, involves a phenomenon we see all over the ocean: bioluminescence. The whale's diet consists almost entirely of deep-sea creatures, particularly squid, which are famous for their bioluminescent properties. The whale consumes vast quantities of these light-producing organisms. It's plausible that the whale's own internal chemistry, or the bacteria it hosts, could harness these compounds. The whale could theoretically expel a spray laced with bioluminescent chemicals, like luciferin and luciferase, which react with oxygen in the air. The result wouldn't be a hot, burning fire in the traditional sense, but a brilliant, terrifying flash of cold light, a chemical fire. To a witness on the water, especially at dawn or dusk, the distinction would be meaningless. A monstrous head breaking the surface, a deafening roar, a cloud of thick smoke erupting into the sky, and within that cloud, a sudden brilliant flash of light, sparks, lamps, fire leaping out. It fits the description perfectly. It's not magic. It's something far more terrifying, biology pushed to its absolute monstrous extreme. This isn't just a wild guess. There are historical accounts from the age of whaling that seem to support this. Whalers described sperm whales in their death throes, or when enraged, producing a strange glowing mist from their blowholes, sometimes referred to as a fiery spout. They were practical men, not given to flights of fancy, yet they described something that science is only now beginning to consider. They witnessed a biological function so rare and so extreme that it passed into the realm of myth. So the fire-breathing Leviathan, the monster whose breath could set the very sea ablaze, may not have been a dragon in the fantasy sense. It may have been a real animal, a sperm whale, using a bizarre and terrifying defense mechanism. A biological flamethrower fueled by the very oil that made it a legend. It's a stunning example of how a real-world animal, seen through the eyes of ancient people without a modern understanding of biology, could become the basis for the most fearsome monster ever described. But the fire and smoke are only one part of the legend. The Book of Job goes on to describe the Leviathan in even more detail, painting a picture of a creature that was not just fearsome, but seemingly invincible. It speaks of a body covered in impenetrable armor. His scales are his pride, shut up together as with a close seal. One is so near to another that no air can come between them. It describes a creature that laughs at spears, that treats iron as straw and bronze as rotten wood. What kind of animal could possibly fit this description? No whale has scales. Its skin, while thick, is vulnerable. This seems to be a dead end, a point where the myth must finally diverge from reality. But nature is full of surprises, and the answer to the Leviathan's impenetrable armor may lie not with the whale, but with another, equally ancient and even more heavily armored titan of the water. A living dinosaur that still swims in the darkest rivers and estuaries of the world. The Nile crocodile, and its even larger, more terrifying cousin, the saltwater crocodile. These are not just reptiles, they are archosaurs, a group of animals that first appeared over 250 million years ago. They walked with dinosaurs. They survived the asteroid that wiped them out. They are living fossils, apex predators perfected by evolution over eons. Their fundamental design so brutally effective it has barely needed to change. And their defining feature, the one that has ensured their dynasty's survival, is their armor. Let's go back to the Book of Job, chapter 41, verses 15 through 17. The description of Leviathan's hide is incredibly specific. His back has rows of shields, shut up tightly as with a seal. One is so near to another that no air can come between them. They are joined one to another. They stick together and cannot be parted. This is not poetry. This is a precise, almost technical description of a biological reality. Think about the back of a large crocodile. It's not covered in scales in the way a fish or a snake is. It's armored with bony plates called scuts. But the real secret lies just beneath the skin. Embedded within that leathery hide are bony deposits called osteoderms, literally bone skin. These aren't just scales, they are individual plates of solid bone, forming a chainmail-like armor. Each osteoderm is a shield, and as the scripture says, they are arranged in precise rows, locked together so tightly that they form a single unified defensive structure, shut up tightly as with a seal. It's a perfect description. When you look at the back of a crocodile, you can see how these bony shields are interlocked, creating a flexible but nearly impenetrable barrier. A spear point wouldn't find purchase. An arrow would glance off. The text says no air can come between them, a powerful Hebrew idiom for a perfect, seamless fit. Now compare this to the whale. A whale's skin is smooth, rubbery, and designed for hydrodynamics, not defense. It's a thick layer of blubber, which is great for insulation, but it can be pierced. It can be cut. Great white sharks do it. Killer whales do it. Ancient whalers with hand-thrown harpoons did it for centuries. A whale's hide is tough, but it is not a back with rows of shields. It doesn't fit the description, not even close. But the crocodile? The description is flawless. Ancient accounts are filled with stories of the difficulty in hunting these creatures. Egyptian hunters knew to aim for the softer underbelly, the only potential weak spot. Herodotus, the Greek historian, wrote of Egyptians using a baited hook to drag a crocodile onto the land, where they would blind it with mud to attack its vulnerable parts. Why? Because a direct assault on its back was futile. Their weapons were useless against that God-given armor. Even in the modern era, stories abound of bullets from low-caliber firearms ricocheting off the backs of large saltwater crocodiles. It takes a high-powered rifle, aimed with precision at the small patch of exposed neck behind the skull, to guarantee a kill. The Leviathan's armor, which cannot be parted, is a living reality on the back of every crocodile on Earth. But the evidence doesn't stop with the armor. The scripture continues to paint a picture that aligns, detail for terrifying detail, with this ancient reptile. Job 41 verse 14 asks, "Who can open the doors of his face? His teeth are terrible all around." Is there a more perfect description of a crocodile's head? The doors of his face. It's an incredible phrase, evoking the image of its immense, hinged jaws opening like twin gates to a world of death. And when those jaws are closed, they form an iconic, jagged smile. Unlike mammals, a crocodile's teeth are always visible. They interlock, with some teeth from the lower jaw fitting into notches in the upper jaw, creating a terrifying, permanent grin. His teeth are terrible all around. It's not an exaggeration. It's a simple statement of fact. A large saltwater crocodile can have up to 68 of these conical, bone-crushing teeth, and they can slam their jaws shut with a bite force of over 3,700 pounds per square inch, the strongest of any living animal. So we have the impenetrable shield-like armor. We have the terrifying jaws and the ever-present terrible teeth. The case for the crocodile as the real-life inspiration for Leviathan is becoming incredibly strong. It seems to fit far better than any whale. But then we run into a problem. A big one. The part of the scripture that seems to catapult Leviathan out of the realm of zoology and firmly into the world of myth. Verses 18 through 21. His sneezings flash forth light, and his eyes are like the eyelids of the morning. Out of his mouth go burning lights. Sparks of fire shoot out. Smoke goes out of his nostrils, as from a boiling pot and burning rushes. His breath kindles coals, and a flame goes out of his mouth. Fire, smoke, burning light. This is where most modern interpretations stop and declare Leviathan a purely symbolic dragon, a creature of pure fantasy. A crocodile, for all its terror, does not breathe fire. It does not shoot sparks from its mouth or smoke from its nostrils. Case closed, right? The crocodile theory, as strong as it was, just went up in smoke. But what if we're reading this with modern, literal eyes? What if the ancient author was using the most powerful language he had to describe something that was, to him, almost supernatural in its ferocity? Consider the imagery. Smoke goes out of his nostrils. When a large crocodile surfaces after being submerged in cooler water, the warm, humid air from its powerful lungs often condenses in the colder morning air. It looks exactly like smoke or steam billowing from its nostrils. Anyone who has lived in a cold climate has seen their own breath do the same thing. Now imagine that effect on a monstrous 20-foot scale. His sneezings flash forth light. Crocodiles often clear their nostrils with a powerful percussive snort or sneeze. When this happens, a spray of water is blasted into the air. If that crocodile is surfacing at dawn, with the sun low on the horizon, the light would catch that spray of water droplets, creating a glittering, flashing halo of light for a split second. A flash of light accompanying a percussive blast from its nostrils. And what about the most incredible claim? A flame goes out of his mouth. This is harder to explain, but think about an enraged crocodile, its mouth wide open in a threat display, the pink and yellow tissues of its gullet exposed. In the reddish light of a desert sunrise or sunset, could this not be poetically described as a glowing furnace? A flame in its mouth? We have to remember, this is not a scientific textbook. It is ancient Near Eastern poetry, a genre that thrives on metaphor and hyperbole to convey power and awe. They weren't describing a literal fire-breathing dragon. They were describing a real animal whose natural behaviors were so terrifying and alien that they seemed to border on the supernatural. And there's one more clue, a beautiful subtle detail hidden in that same passage. His eyes are like the eyelids of the morning. What a strange and specific phrase. What could it possibly mean? Picture the Nile at dawn. The water is still, dark, and glassy. Nothing moves. Then slowly, 2 points of light break the surface. Just the eyes. It's a crocodile lying in ambush, its entire body hidden beneath the water except for its eyes and nostrils. As the first rays of the sun, the literal eyelids of the morning, stretch across the horizon, they catch the reflective layer behind the crocodile's retinas, the tapetum lucidum, the same thing that makes a cat's eyes glow in the dark. Those eyes would seem to burn on the surface of the water, glowing with a reddish gold light. They would look exactly like the dawn itself breaking over the horizon. His eyes are like the eyelids of the morning. It is one of the most stunningly accurate and poetic descriptions of animal behavior in all of ancient literature. The crocodile fits. The armor, the teeth, the jaws, and even the seemingly mythical descriptions of fire and light can be understood as powerful poetic renderings of real biological phenomena. The case seems almost sealed. This ancient, terrifying river king must be our Leviathan, except for one final massive contradiction, a problem not of biology but of geography. The text is explicit. Leviathan is not a creature of the river. It is the undisputed monarch of the great and wide sea. Psalm 104 says, "There is the sea, great and broad, in which are swarms without number, living things both small and great. There the ships go to and fro, and Leviathan, which you have made to play there." The sea, the open ocean, the domain of whales and sharks and krakens. Crocodiles are masters of the river, the estuary, the mangrove swamp. While saltwater crocodiles are famous for their tolerance of the ocean and can travel long distances at sea, they are not true deep ocean creatures. They are coastal. They are of the land and the river as much as the sea. So how can this be? How can an animal so perfectly described by the text, an animal that fits the physical profile down to the last bony skewed, be the wrong creature simply because it lives in the wrong place? If Leviathan is the crocodile, why does the Bible place it in the deep ocean? Unless the sea the ancient authors were talking about wasn't the sea we think of today. Unless the original Leviathan was something else entirely, a creature that shared the crocodile's impenetrable armor, but possessed a size and a habitat that would make even the largest saltwater crocodile seem small. A true monster of the deep. To find that monster, we must leave the rivers and swamps behind. We must abandon the shorelines and venture out into the vast, terrifying expanse of the open ocean. Because for the ancient world, the sea was the ultimate unknown. It was a realm of chaos, immense power, and creatures beyond human comprehension. And ruling over this domain was a candidate for Leviathan that dwarfs the crocodile in every conceivable way, the great whale. At first glance, this seems like a powerful fit. The sheer scale of a large whale, like a fin whale or a sperm whale, both of which have been found in the Mediterranean, is difficult for us, even in our modern age, to fully grasp. Imagine being an ancient mariner in a small wooden boat. Suddenly, the water beside you erupts, and a creature longer than your vessel, with skin like a rolling gray continent, surfaces to breathe. The sound alone would be deafening. The sight would be humbling, terrifying, divine. This is not an animal you fight. This is a force of nature you pray to survive. The Book of Job asks, "Can you pull in Leviathan with a fishhook or tie down his tongue with a rope?" For a whale, the question is almost laughable. For centuries, even with advanced technology, hunting these giants was one of the most dangerous professions on Earth. It required entire fleets, specialized harpoons, and crews of hardened men, many of whom never returned. The idea of a single person with a simple hook and line landing a great whale is an absurdity. On this point, the whale fits the description of an untamable, unconquerable beast perfectly. The text continues describing its awesome power. He makes the depths churn like a boiling cauldron and stirs up the sea like a pot of ointment. Anyone who has witnessed a whale breach knows this imagery is no exaggeration. When a 40-ton animal launches its entire body out of the water and crashes back down, the sea itself seems to boil. The turbulence, the foam, the sheer displacement of water is a spectacle of raw, untamed power. The churning wake left by a pod of whales or the slick, calm patch of water, known as a fluke print, left behind when a whale dives deep, could easily be described as stirring the sea like a pot of ointment. This is the behavior of a true titan of the deep, an animal that treats the ocean as its personal kingdom. But the most compelling, the most startling piece of evidence for the whale theory comes from the description of Leviathan's breath. This is where the crocodile theory completely falls apart, but where the whale theory shines. Job 41 reads, "Smoke pours from his nostrils as from a boiling pot over burning reeds. His breath sets coals ablaze and flames dart from his mouth." Now, of course, whales do not literally breathe fire and smoke. But think about what a whale's spout actually is. It's not just water. It is hot, pressurized air, mixed with water vapor and mucus, erupting from the whale's lungs with incredible force. On a cool morning or against the backdrop of a dark sea, this plume of vapor looks exactly like a blast of steam or smoke. It hangs in the air, a visible, powerful exhalation, like smoke from a great cauldron. The ancient writer, trying to describe this bizarre and powerful phenomenon, for which he had no scientific explanation, reached for the most potent imagery he knew: smoke and steam. But what about the fire? The sparks and the flames? This too has a stunningly plausible explanation. Imagine seeing this spout not in the flat light of day, but at sunrise or sunset. As the whale exhales, the mist catches the low-angled light of the sun, refracting it into 1,000 glittering points of color. It would look like a shower of sparks, a momentary rainbow of fire erupting from the sea. There's another, even more magical possibility. Certain species of whales feed in waters rich with bioluminescent plankton. When they surface to breathe, especially at night, their powerful exhalation could send a cloud of these microscopic, light-producing organisms into the air. The result would be a literal cloud of glittering, cold fire, a ghostly, ethereal light show accompanying every breath. To an ancient witness, this would be nothing short of miraculous, a monster that exhaled smoke and sparks. It's a near-perfect match for the poetic, yet specific language in the text. However, the whale theory is not without its own significant problems. And the biggest one is the very first thing the text describes, the armor. His back has rows of shields shut up tightly together. They are joined one to another so that no air can pass between them. This is an incredible description of a crocodile's back. It is an absolutely terrible description of a whale. Whale skin is generally smooth. It's tough, yes, often scarred from battles with other sea creatures or barnacle growth, but it is not made of scales or bony plates. Proponents of the whale theory have tried to argue that perhaps the shields are a metaphor for the whale's immense, impenetrable bulk, or perhaps it refers to the patterns of barnacles that encrust the skin of many large whales, like humpbacks or gray whales, which could vaguely resemble a shield-like pattern. But these feel like stretches. They are attempts to make the evidence fit the theory, rather than letting the evidence speak for itself. The simple truth is, the crocodile wears the armor described in Job. The whale does not. We're left with a fascinating puzzle. The crocodile has the impenetrable armor, the terrifying mouthful of teeth, and the unyielding jaws. It perfectly embodies the close-quarters terror of a river god. But it doesn't breathe smoke, it doesn't make the deep sea boil. And while formidable, its size doesn't quite match the epic scale of a creature that is king over all the proud. The whale, on the other hand, perfectly embodies the scale, the power, and the mystery of the open ocean. Its spout is a dead ringer for the smoke and sparks described in the text. Its movements can literally make the sea churn like a cauldron. It is a true sovereign of the abyss, a creature of such magnitude that it seems more like a living island than an animal. But it lacks the fundamental feature of armor, the very first thing God points to when describing Leviathan's fearsome form. Seems we are at an impasse. We have two contenders, each a powerful monster in its own right. Each fits parts of the description perfectly, while completely failing on others. It's as if the author took the most terrifying attributes of the most terrifying animal of the river, and combined them with the most awesome attributes of the most awesome animal of the sea, to create a composite nightmare, a creature greater than the sum of its parts. This suggests a third possibility. Perhaps we have been too literal in our search. We've been scouring the animal kingdom for a perfect match, a zoological specimen that ticks every box. But the ancient world didn't always see a hard line between the physical and the symbolic. Monsters weren't just creatures of flesh and blood. They were living embodiments of cosmic forces. What if Leviathan wasn't an animal at all? What if the crocodile and the whale are just faint echoes of the true monster? A creature not of biology, but of mythology. A symbol of a chaos so ancient and so profound, it predated creation itself. Before there was light, there was the deep. And in the deep, something stirred. This is the oldest story we have. It's a story that echoes from the shattered clay tablets of Mesopotamia to the sun-scorched hills of Canaan. A story that whispers from beneath the very first lines of Genesis. It's a myth so powerful, so fundamental to the human psyche, that scholars have given it a name: the Chaoskampf. The struggle against chaos is the cosmic combat myth, the foundational narrative of nearly every ancient Near Eastern culture. The plot is always the same. Before creation, there is nothing but a vast, watery, monstrous chaos. A divine creator hero, often a young storm god, rises up to challenge this primordial entity. A battle of epic proportions ensues, a war that literally shapes the universe. The hero god is victorious, slays the chaos monster, and then uses its colossal corpse to build the world as we know it. Order is born from the violent death of chaos. This isn't just one story among many. For the ancient world, this was the story. It explained everything. Why the world exists, why the seasons change, why the rains come, and why there is a constant terrifying threat of everything collapsing back into the formless abyss from which it came. The monster wasn't just a beast. It was the embodiment of the uncreated, the unformed, the undone. It was the eternal threat of non-existence. Let's travel back 4,000 years to ancient Babylon. There, the priests would recite an epic poem of creation, the Enuma Elish. It tells of a time before time, when only two beings existed: Apsu, the god of fresh water, and his consort Tiamat, the goddess of the chaotic saltwater ocean. From them, all other gods were born. But these new gods were noisy, and their energy disturbed the slumber of their parents. Apsu plotted to kill them but was slain first. This enraged Tiamat, and the poem describes her transformation. She was no longer the passive mother goddess. She became a creature of pure rage, a monstrous primeval dragon of the abyss. She created an army of nightmarish demons, vipers, scorpion men, and raging hounds, to destroy her children. The gods were terrified. None could stand against the awesome power of the primordial sea. None, that is, except one, the young, ambitious storm god Marduk. Marduk agreed to face Tiamat, but for a price. If he won, he would be crowned king of all gods. He armed himself with winds, a lightning-filled net, and an unstoppable storm chariot. The battle that followed was cosmic in scale. Tiamat opened her mouth to consume him, but Marduk drove the evil winds into her, inflating her body like a balloon so she couldn't close her jaws. He then fired an arrow that tore through her belly, split her heart, and extinguished her life. But he didn't stop there. This is the crucial part. Marduk took Tiamat's gargantuan corpse and split it in half like a shellfish. With one half he formed the roof of the sky, creating the heavens and positioning the stars. With the other half, he laid the foundations of the earth. Her saliva became the clouds. From her weeping eyes flowed the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. He had defeated chaos, and from its very substance he created order. He built the world on the back of the slain sea monster. Tiamat was the Leviathan of her day, the original. Now let's move west and a little forward in time to the land of Canaan, the direct neighbors of the ancient Israelites. Here, archaeologists in the city of Ugarit unearthed a treasure trove of texts, telling the story of their chief god, Baal, another powerful storm god. And who was Baal's primary enemy? A tyrannical sea god named Yam, and his monstrous agent, a seven-headed sea serpent named Latan. Listen to how the Ugaritic texts describe this creature. Latan the writhing serpent. Latan the twisting serpent. The mighty one with 7 heads. Does that sound familiar? It's almost a word-for-word echo of the prophet Isaiah's description of Leviathan. The linguistic connection is undeniable. Latan, Leviathan. It's the same creature, the same myth, told in a different tongue. The stories tell of Baal's mighty battle, how he smote the sea dragon and secured his kingship, bringing order and fertile rains to the land, pushing back the chaotic waters of the sea. So, when the authors of the Bible wrote about Leviathan, this was the world they lived in. Their audience, listening to the story of Job or the Psalms of David, wouldn't have been thinking about a big crocodile. That would be like us hearing about a dragon and thinking someone saw a Komodo. The cultural context was saturated with the Chaoscamph. They heard the name Leviathan and they immediately understood. They saw Tiamat. They saw Latan. They saw the 7-headed serpent of chaos that predated the mountains and the stars. They saw the ultimate symbol of the forces that sought to unmake creation. But here is where the biblical authors do something absolutely radical, something that turns the entire myth on its head and makes a theological statement so profound it changed the world. In the Babylonian and Canaanite stories, the battle is fierce. Marduk and Baal are pushed to their limits. It's a genuine struggle between two immense powers. The gods fear the monster of the deep. It is their equal, their opposite. Now look at how the Bible treats Leviathan. In Psalm 74 it says, "It was you who crushed the heads of Leviathan and gave him as food to the creatures of the desert." There's no epic struggle described. It's a statement of fact. God crushed him. Past tense. Done. But the most mind-blowing verse comes from Psalm 104. The psalmist is listing the wonders of God's creation. The heavens, the earth, the animals. And then he gets to the sea and he says, "There go the ships and Leviathan, which you formed to play in it." Let that sink in. To play in it. The most terrifying symbol of primordial chaos in the ancient world. The beast that other gods feared. The uncreation monster whose defeat was the central drama of the universe. And the God of Israel created it for sport. As a toy. A pet to frolic in the ocean. This is not a story about a struggle. This is a story about absolute, uncontested power. The biblical authors took the most potent symbol of chaos their culture knew and effectively declared, "Our God is so far beyond your gods, that the monster that gives them nightmares is nothing more than his plaything." When God finally speaks to Job from the whirlwind, he isn't boasting about a difficult victory. He's not saying, "Look how I barely defeated this mighty beast." He is saying, "Look at my creation. Can you even comprehend its power? Can you put a hook in its nose? I can. I made it. It answers to me." The entire point is that what seems like ultimate chaos to humanity is just another part of God's ordered, if incomprehensible, creation. This reframes everything. Leviathan isn't God's enemy. He isn't God's rival. He is God's creature. The implication is staggering. The ancient Israelites absorbed the most powerful myth of their neighbors and subverted it entirely. They used the very symbol of chaos to declare that their God was in control of everything, even chaos itself. The monster isn't a threat to God's reign. It is a demonstration of it. But this raises an even deeper, more troubling question. If God is in such complete and total control of the forces of chaos, if Leviathan is merely his pet, then why does the world feel so chaotic? Why do the seas still rage? Why do storms still sink ships and floods still destroy cities? If the battle is already won so decisively, why does the monster's shadow still fall so heavily upon the world? Perhaps the story isn't as simple as a single battle at the dawn of time. Perhaps the monster wasn't just a memory of the past, but also a prophecy of the future. To understand the true, enduring terror of Leviathan, we have to look beyond the primordial battlefield of creation. We have to look to the prophets. Centuries after the world was spoken into existence, the prophet Isaiah stood before a nation gripped by fear, surrounded by hostile empires, and he didn't speak of a monster that was defeated. He spoke of a monster that will be defeated. In a stunning vision of the end of days, Isaiah declares, "In that day, the Lord with his hard and great and strong sword will punish Leviathan the fleeing serpent, Leviathan the twisting serpent, and he will slay the dragon that is in the sea." Notice the language. This isn't history. This is prophecy. The tenses are all future. The battle isn't over. The final round is yet to be fought. This single passage reframes the entire myth. The original victory over chaos wasn't the end of the story. It was just the prelude. It was the promise that what God did once in the beginning, he will do again decisively and for all time at the end. The monster, it turns out, has a second act. And to the ancient Israelites, this wasn't just abstract theology. It was intensely political. To them, the churning chaotic sea was the perfect metaphor for the world of nations, the violent, unpredictable, and godless empires that constantly threatened their existence. The monster of the deep wasn't just a symbol of cosmic chaos. It became the living emblem of their most feared enemies. Think of Egypt, the great empire on the Nile. The prophet Ezekiel explicitly calls the Pharaoh the great dragon that lies in the midst of his streams. The imagery is unmistakable. Pharaoh, with his armies arrayed along the life-giving river, is a beast of the water, a localized Leviathan who claims, "My Nile is my own. I made it for myself." This is the classic boast of the chaos monster, a creature of creation that dares to claim the power of the Creator. When God brings judgment on Egypt, the prophets describe it as a cosmic hunt, hooking the jaw of the great dragon and dragging it from its waters. Then came Babylon, the empire that did what even Egypt could not. It swallowed the nation of Judah whole. The prophet Jeremiah cries out on behalf of his exiled people, saying, "King Nebuchadnezzar has devoured me. He has swallowed me like a monster. He has filled his belly with my delicacies and spewed me out." The Leviathan is no longer just a distant myth. It has become a gut-wrenching national trauma. The beast from the sea has risen and consumed them. So when Isaiah prophesies a final battle with Leviathan, he's delivering a message of incredible hope. He's telling a broken and defeated people that the monster that swallowed them, whether it's called Egypt or Assyria or Babylon, is itself subject to a higher power. He's saying that God's final victory won't just be over some abstract force of chaos, but over the very real, very terrifying political and military powers that seek to dominate the world and defy their creator. The myth has been weaponized into a promise of ultimate liberation. But even this profound political symbolism doesn't capture the final and most terrifying evolution of the beast. As the centuries passed, the monster began to shed its specific identities. It was no longer just Egypt or just Babylon. it started to represent something far larger. It became the archetype of all anti-God empires, the ultimate personification of worldly power set in rebellion against the heavens. The monster was becoming the Antichrist. And for its final apocalyptic appearance, we must turn to the last book of the Bible, Revelation. Here, in the nightmarish visions of the Apostle John, a creature emerges that is the culmination of everything Leviathan has ever been. John sees a beast rising out of the sea, and this is no ordinary creature. It has 7 heads and 10 horns, with 10 crowns on its horns. On its heads are written blasphemous names. It is a grotesque chimera, a horrifying hybrid of a leopard, a bear, and a lion. This is Leviathan on a cosmic scale. The symbolism is a masterclass in biblical horror. The 7 heads and 10 horns represent a succession of wicked empires and rulers throughout history, a dynasty of chaos. The composite body parts are direct references to the beasts from the prophecies of Daniel, which represented Babylon, Persia, and Greece. John is telling us that this final beast is the sum of all evils, the concentration of all the monstrous empires that have ever plagued humanity, rolled into one ultimate entity. It is the final world-devouring Leviathan, given power by the dragon himself, Satan, to make war against God and his people. This is the monster's final form, not as a force of nature, but as a political and spiritual system of total world domination that demands worship. The beast from the sea in Revelation sets up a global regime, performs false miracles, and commands the allegiance of every tribe and people and language. To refuse is to be executed. This is the ultimate expression of chaos, not just the physical disorder of a raging sea, but the moral and spiritual disorder of a world that worships the creature instead of the creator. It's the boast of Pharaoh, "I made this myself," echoed on a global scale. The story has now come full circle. The battle that began in the darkness before creation must now be concluded on the stage of human history. The primordial conflict between God and the sea dragon is reenacted as a final war between the Lamb of God and the beast from the sea. This is why the shadow of Leviathan falls so heavily across the entire biblical narrative. It is a story told in a fractal pattern, repeating at every level of reality. It's the chaos of the formless void. It's the chaos of the political empires. And ultimately, it's the chaos of a rebellious humanity, embodied in a final monstrous figure who rises from the sea of nations to make one last stand against heaven. The prophets and the apostles took the old combat myth and supercharged it. They transformed a creature of myth into the ultimate symbol of evil, a recurring villain in the divine drama of salvation. The question was no longer simply whether God could defeat the monster. The creation story had already answered that. The new, urgent question was how he would do it at the end of time, when the beast seemed to hold the entire world in its grasp. The prophecies promised a final, decisive victory, but the nature of that victory, the ultimate fate of the great beast, is more shocking and bizarre than you can possibly imagine. The final prophecy wasn't just about destroying the monster. It was about what would be done with the corpse. To understand what happens next, you have to forget everything you think you know about victory and defeat. In our world, when a great enemy is vanquished, we might build a monument, hold a parade, or write stories about the battle. But in the cosmic drama of the Eschaton, the end of days, the celebration is something else entirely. It's a feast, a banquet of unimaginable scale and significance, reserved for the righteous, the tzaddikim, who have kept their faith through the long dark night of history. This is the Sudat Chayat Hamadim, the great feast at the end of time. And every feast needs a main course. Imagine the scene. The righteous of all generations gathered together. A celestial table stretching beyond the horizon. And what is the centerpiece of this divine meal? The flesh of the Leviathan, the very symbol of primordial chaos, the untamable beast of the abyss, is now destined to be served and consumed by the righteous. The Talmud, in the tractate Bava Butra, describes this with astonishing detail. It says that after God slays the Leviathan, its flesh will be prepared for the saints. Some traditions even say it will be salted and preserved for this specific purpose. The ultimate predator becomes the ultimate sustenance. The embodiment of the world's untamed, godless forces is transformed into the very thing that nourishes God's faithful. This isn't just about food. It's a profound theological statement. It's the ultimate act of sanctification. Think about it. Throughout history, humanity has struggled against the forces of chaos, both external and internal. The Leviathan represents all of it, the terrifying power of nature, the political empires that crush the innocent, the deep-seated pride and rebellion in the human heart. To eat the flesh of the Leviathan is to symbolically and spiritually internalize the victory over that chaos. It's a declaration that in the end, nothing is wasted. Even the greatest evil, the most terrifying opposition to the divine plan, will ultimately be subjugated and repurposed to serve the good. The fear it once inspired is replaced by the nourishment it now provides. Chaos is not just defeated. It is consumed, assimilated, and turned into a source of strength for the very people it once terrorized. But the feast is even more elaborate, more bizarrely magnificent than that. This isn't just a meal. It's an entire experience crafted from the remains of the vanquished monster. A banquet of this scale needs a venue, a place for the righteous to gather. Where do you hold a party for the saints of all ages? You build a sukkah, a tabernacle, a great celestial tent. And the roof of this tent, the canopy under which the righteous will dine, will be made from the skin of the Leviathan. The very hide that was impenetrable to all weapons, covered in scales like a shield of iron and bronze, will be stretched across the heavens. Jewish tradition describes this skin as being intensely beautiful and luminous. It won't be a dark, leathery ceiling. It will be a radiant canopy, glowing with an otherworldly light, filtering the divine glory of God. The very thing that served as the monster's armor, its defense against the divine, is transformed into a shelter for the divine's people. The barrier becomes the sanctuary. The symbol of impenetrable pride becomes the roof over the heads of the humble. Every element of the monster's power is systematically dismantled and reconsecrated. And what about the rest of the skin? The Talmud says that after the sukkah is made, the leftover skin will be stretched over the walls of Jerusalem, causing them to radiate with a brilliant light that will illuminate the entire world. The city of God will be literally clothed in the glory of his victory over the abyss. Other parts of the skin, it is said, will be used to make priceless garments for the righteous, and even shoes. Imagine wearing a cloak made from the hide of a cosmic sea dragon, a garment that shines with an inner light. It's a symbol of ultimate triumph and vindication. But a feast hall, even one with a luminous roof made from monster hide, needs light. Especially a feast that celebrates the final victory of light over darkness. So where does the light come from? It comes from the Leviathan itself. The sages taught that the two great eyes of the Leviathan will be salvaged. These eyes, which once blazed with terrifying fury in the dark depths of the sea, will be set like two magnificent jewels, two celestial lanterns, to illuminate the great banquet. Some interpretations see them placed at the gates of Jerusalem, shining their light out for all the nations to see. The monster's gaze, once a source of terror, becomes a source of eternal light and celebration. The very organs it used to perceive and navigate the darkness are transformed into beacons that abolish darkness forever. Every part of this is drenched in symbolism. The flesh provides nourishment. The skin provides shelter. The eyes provide light. The entire being of the defeated monster is repurposed for the glory of God and the joy of his people. This is the ultimate recycling program. It's a message that in the divine economy, nothing is truly lost to evil. God's power is so absolute that he doesn't just destroy his enemies, he unmakes them, taking their very essence and using it as the raw material for salvation and celebration. The victory isn't just an event, it's a transformation of reality itself. And here the story gets even bigger, because the Leviathan was not alone in the primordial world. While it ruled the seas, another creature, its equal and opposite, ruled the land. A colossal beast of unimaginable size and power, known as the Behemoth, described in the book of Job as the chief of the ways of God, a creature whose bones are like tubes of bronze and whose limbs are like bars of iron. The legends say that just as God will slay the Leviathan, he will also slay the Behemoth. And at the great feast, the two monsters will be served side by side. The righteous will dine on the flesh of the great beast of the land and the great beast of the sea. It is the ultimate surf and turf, a meal composed of the two most powerful physical creatures ever to exist, the twin symbols of untamable natural power, now brought low and served up in the final triumphant celebration. This cosmic banquet is the final answer to the problem of evil. It's not just punished, it's redeemed. It's not just destroyed, it's transfigured. The very source of terror becomes the source of joy. The power that challenged creation is used to perfect it. It's a shocking, visceral, and profoundly optimistic vision of the end. But this incredible story of the Great Feast conceals another, darker secret. We've been speaking of the Leviathan as a single entity, the great male dragon of the sea. But the original creation story, hidden in the commentaries and the Midrash, speaks of two. God, they say, created a male and a female Leviathan. If the male is destined to be slain at the end of days to become the feast for the righteous, what happened to its mate? What was the fate of the female Leviathan? The answer to that question reveals a decision made by God at the dawn of time. A decision so brutal and so necessary that it has echoed through all of creation. To understand this act, we must journey back, not just to the fifth day of creation, but into the minds of the ancient sages who wrestled with these terrifying scriptures. They looked at the awesome power of the one Leviathan described by Job, and they asked a simple, terrifyingly logical question: what if there were two? What if this creature, which alone could shatter the pride of men, could reproduce? The answer is found in the Talmud, in a passage that feels less like theology and more like a glimpse into a cosmic horror story. The text states that God created a male and a female Leviathan. But in the very moment of their creation, God saw the future. He saw a world teeming not with life, but with their offspring. An ocean choked with scaled, fire-breathing titans. A world where humanity could never take root, where the light of the sun would be blotted out by colossal shadows moving beneath the waves. The world, the rabbis concluded, could not have endured them had they procreated. Creation would have been stillborn, devoured in its cradle by its own most powerful creations. So God performed a terrible and necessary act of cosmic surgery. To save the world, one of them had to be removed from the equation. God slew the female Leviathan. Think about the sheer gravity of this moment. Before sin had entered the world, before Adam had even taken his first breath, a death occurred. A death ordained and executed by the Creator himself. This wasn't a punishment. It was a preemption, a divine act of pruning to allow the tree of life to grow. God looked upon the raw, untamable power he had made, a power so immense that even he, in his design for a balanced world, had to set a limit. He neutered the male Leviathan, rendering him sterile, and then he killed the female. One brutal, swift, and silent stroke in the primordial deep, and the future of all life was secured. This act separates the biblical narrative from nearly every other creation myth of the ancient Near East. In the Babylonian epic, the Enuma Elish, the world itself is built from the corpse of a female chaos monster. The god Marduk slays the great sea dragon Tiamat, and then splits her carcass in two, using one half to form the heavens and the other to form the earth. In that story, creation is the result of the monster's death. The world is literally made from chaos, but the Hebrew account is profoundly different. God creates the world and calls it good, before dealing with Leviathan. Creation is not made from the monster, it is made separate from it. The slaying of the female Leviathan is not an act of construction, but an act of preservation. It's God protecting his already perfect creation from a power that would unmake it. It's a declaration that chaos would not be the building block of this world, but an external force that must be contained, controlled, and ultimately defeated. Why the female? Was this some ancient misogyny written into the fabric of the cosmos? No, the symbolism runs deeper than that. In many ancient traditions, the masculine principle represents a contained, singular force, while the feminine principle represents the power of procreation, of multiplicity, of boundless, generative potential. The male Leviathan could be a singular, awesome threat, a force of nature to be respected and feared. But the female held the key to something far more dangerous: infinity, the potential for an endless dynasty of sea monsters, a chaos that could multiply. God's decision was to allow a measure of chaos to exist within his creation. The male Leviathan is left to play with, a testament to God's ultimate power over even the most terrifying things. But he could not allow that chaos to become self-replicating. He established a boundary. He drew a line in the cosmic sand and declared that the abyss would not be allowed to breed. But what became of her? What did God do with the body of this colossal creature, the first being to die in all of creation? The answer is just as stunning as the act of her death. He didn't discard her. He didn't cast her into some forgotten void. The Talmud says that God preserved her. He salted her flesh and stored it away. For what purpose? For the righteous. For the great messianic banquet at the end of time. The very creature that threatened to devour the world at the beginning of time will become the feast that sustains the saints at the end of it. The ultimate symbol of destructive chaos is transformed by divine will into the ultimate symbol of eternal reward. It's a breathtaking piece of theology. God takes the greatest threat to his creation and makes it the final blessing for those who followed him. The poison becomes the antidote. The terror becomes the triumph. This single, primordial act tells us more about the nature of the biblical God than 1,000 pages of law. It shows a God who is not afraid of power, but is a master of it. A God who is not just a creator but a protector. A God who understands that for a garden to flourish, the weeds must be pulled, sometimes before they even have a chance to seed. It reveals a universe where order is not a given, but a deliberate, and sometimes costly choice. Every law, every covenant, every judgment that follows in the biblical story is an echo of this first decisive act. The act of setting boundaries, the act of separating light from darkness, land from sea, and order from a chaos that would consume all. The death of the female Leviathan was the first and greatest of these separations. It was the price of existence, the sacrifice required for the story of humanity to even begin. So her fate is sealed, preserved in salt and shadow, waiting for the end of days. But what of her mate, the lonely king of the abyss, the sterile, solitary monster left to swim in the eternal darkness? Did God truly leave him with no purpose other than to play? Or is his long, lonely existence just a prelude, a waiting game for one final act in the cosmic drama? The male Leviathan, the survivor, still has a role to play. And his story, his ultimate purpose, is tied directly to the fate of the world he was almost not allowed to inhabit. His final chapter is yet to be written, and it involves a confrontation so epic, it will shake the very foundations of heaven and earth. This final confrontation is not just a battle, it is a cosmic reckoning. It is the climax of a story that began before time, in the churning, formless chaos of the primordial abyss. To understand this final act, we must turn to the prophet Isaiah, who was given a glimpse into the end of days. In chapter 27, he writes a prophecy that is as chilling as it is absolute. In that day, the Lord with his sore and great and strong sword shall punish Leviathan the piercing serpent, even Leviathan that crooked serpent, and he shall slay the dragon that is in the sea. Let's break that down because every word is heavy with meaning. In that day, this isn't just any day. This is the day of the Lord, the moment when all accounts are settled, when the arc of history finds its final definitive conclusion. It is the day of ultimate judgment and ultimate renewal. And on the divine agenda for that day is a final, non-negotiable appointment with the beast of the sea. And what does God bring to this appointment? His sore and great and strong sword. This is not a weapon forged of earthly metal. This is a metaphor for the irresistible, overwhelming, and absolute power of the Creator. It is great and strong, signifying a power beyond any comprehension, a force that can unmake what was made. But the word sore is fascinating. In the original Hebrew, it can also mean hard or cruel. This isn't a gentle correction. This is a severe final judgment. It is the application of divine force in its most focused and terrifying form, wielded to excise a threat that has lingered since the dawn of time. Isaiah then describes the target with three distinct titles: the piercing serpent, that crooked serpent, and the dragon that is in the sea. This isn't just poetic repetition. It's a complete profile of the enemy. The piercing serpent speaks of its swift, aggressive, and direct nature. A creature that lunges forward, a living spear of destruction. That crooked serpent describes its cunning, its unpredictability, its coiling, inescapable form. It's the symbol of all that is twisted, devious, and contrary to the straight path of righteousness. Finally, the dragon that is in the sea ties it all together, identifying it as the ultimate monster, the sovereign of the deep, the embodiment of the untamed, chaotic abyss. God is not just fighting a sea monster, he is confronting chaos itself in all its forms, the aggressive, the cunning, and the primal. And the prophecy's conclusion is stark and unambiguous. And he shall slay the dragon that is in the sea. There is no negotiation, no possibility of escape, no epic back-and-forth struggle where the outcome is in doubt. The same power that said, "Let there be light," will bring about this final end. It is the ultimate assertion of divine authority. The story that began with God bringing order to the chaotic waters in Genesis finds its bookend here. with God finally and completely vanquishing the ultimate symbol of that chaos. The circle closes. The cosmic narrative is made complete, but according to later Jewish traditions, especially in the Talmud and Midrash, God is not the only one who fights. The end of days will feature a battle of titans so immense, it will make all of human warfare look like a child's game. Leviathan will not rise from the sea alone. From the land, his primordial counterpart, the colossal beast Behemoth, will rise to meet him. Remember Behemoth, the unconquerable master of 1,000 mountains? The two supreme champions of creation, one of the water, one of the earth, created on the 5th and 6th days, are destined for one final cataclysmic duel. Imagine the scene. The earth shakes as Behemoth, the mountain walker, charges. The oceans boil as Leviathan, the sea serpent, surges from the abyss. It is a battle of irresistible forces. The horns of Behemoth, which can level forests, against the impenetrable scales of Leviathan. The crushing weight of the land beast against the coiling, constricting power of the sea dragon. This isn't a battle for territory or dominance. It is a preordained conflict, a divine main event staged on the world stage at the end of time. They will gore and thrash and tear at one another, two forces of unimaginable power locked in a fatal embrace, until in a final earth-shattering climax they kill each other. Their mutual destruction is the final act of the old wild world, clearing the stage for the new creation to come. But what happens next is perhaps the most astonishing part of the entire legend. The bodies of these fearsome, world-threatening monsters are not left to rot. Their end is not merely one of destruction, but of transformation. In this, we find one of the most powerful symbols in all of mythology. The righteous, the faithful who have endured through the trials of history, will be gathered for a great victory celebration, a messianic banquet. And what, you might ask, will be served at this celestial feast? The main course is Leviathan, the flesh of the very creature that embodied terror, chaos, and the depths of the unknown will become the source of nourishment and celebration for God's people. Think about the profound symbolism of that. The ultimate enemy, the greatest fear, is not just defeated, it is consumed. It is integrated into the celebration of its own demise. The power that once threatened to undo creation is now used to sustain the righteous in the new creation. It is the ultimate act of divine recycling, where the very essence of evil and chaos is transformed into a source of joy and life. It's a statement that in God's ultimate victory, nothing is wasted. Even the greatest adversary is made to serve a final redemptive purpose. The fear is literally eaten, digested, and turned into strength. And the feast doesn't end there. The rest of this magnificent creature is also put to use. The skin of Leviathan, the hide that no spear or harpoon could ever pierce, will be used to build the tents and canopies under which the righteous will dwell. The very armor of the enemy becomes the shelter for the faithful. The symbol of impenetrable hostility becomes the symbol of ultimate divine protection. Some legends go even further, claiming the radiant, glowing skin of Leviathan will be stretched across the walls of the New Jerusalem, its otherworldly light illuminating the eternal city. The creature from the lightless abyss, the prince of the deep dark, will become the source of everlasting light. Its eyes, which once shone with cold fury in the crushing blackness of the sea, will be set as jewels in the city walls. This is the final spectacular fate of the Leviathan. It is not just to be killed, but to be completely dismantled and repurposed for the glory of its creator and the joy of the redeemed. Its power is neutralized, its terror is transformed into sustenance, its defenses are turned into shelter, and its darkness is made into a source of eternal light. It is the most complete and total victory imaginable, where every single aspect of the enemy is subjugated and made to serve the victor's purpose. The monster that defined the boundaries of human terror and divine power finds its ultimate purpose not in its life of rebellion, but in its death, serving as the foundation for a new world free from the very chaos it once embodied. The battle is won, the feast is prepared, and the old world of fear gives way to a new reality of celebration. This final triumphant image is more than just the end of a monster. It's the climax of a cosmic story about order and chaos. The tale of Leviathan isn't just about a creature. It's about a fundamental principle of reality. From the very beginning, in the ancient Near Eastern myths that predated the Bible, the world was born from a conflict. A divine champion had to slay a primordial sea dragon, a monster of chaos, to establish the heavens and the earth. Tiamat in Babylon, Latin in Ugarit. The names changed, but the story remained the same. Creation wasn't a peaceful act. It was a violent victory over the abyss. The biblical authors inherited this powerful narrative framework. For them, Leviathan was the ultimate symbol of that pre-creation chaos, a force fundamentally hostile to God's ordered world. It wasn't just a big fish. It was the embodiment of the deep, the untamable, the terrifying power of nature that operates outside human control and understanding. When the psalmist declares that God crushed the heads of Leviathan, it's a declaration that God is sovereign not just over the land and the sky, but over the most terrifying and uncontrollable realm imaginable, the chaotic sea. This is why Leviathan is so much more compelling than other monsters. It represents a fear that is deep-seated in the human psyche, the fear of the unknown, the fear of what lurks beneath the surface of our well-ordered lives. In an age before satellite imagery and deep-sea submersibles, the ocean was a true abyss, a black void from which anything could emerge. Leviathan was the name humanity gave to its deepest anxieties about the world. It was the terrifying other, the thing that reminded us of our own fragility in the face of a vast, and often indifferent universe. But the story doesn't end with fear. It ends with sovereignty. The Bible's most powerful move is to take this symbol of ultimate chaos and place it firmly under God's control. In Psalm 104, the tone shifts dramatically. Leviathan isn't a rival deity or an escaped monster. Instead, the psalmist says God formed Leviathan to play in the sea. Suddenly, the most terrifying creature imaginable is demoted to a divine pet, a plaything for the Creator. The message is earth-shattering. The thing you fear most is nothing more than a toy to the one who is truly in charge. The chaos you see is contained within a larger, divine order you cannot fully perceive. This concept was so powerful that it leaped from the pages of theology into the heart of political philosophy. In the 17th century, as England was torn apart by civil war, the philosopher Thomas Hobbes looked at the chaos of humanity left to its own devices, what he called a war of all against all, and he reached for a biblical monster to describe the solution. He wrote a book called Leviathan. For Hobbes, the only way to save people from their own destructive, chaotic nature was to create an artificial monster, the all-powerful state. This Leviathan, the government, would hold a monopoly on power and violence, creating order and security where there was once only fear and bloodshed. It was a radical idea. We must submit to a massive, terrifying power in order to be saved from the countless smaller terrors of a lawless world. The ancient sea monster was now a metaphor for the very foundation of modern civilization, and its shadow continues to stretch across our culture. You can't read Herman Melville's Moby Dick without seeing the ghost of Leviathan. The great white whale is more than an animal. It is a vast, inscrutable force of nature, a symbol of a universe that is both beautiful and terrifyingly indifferent to human ambition. Captain Ahab's obsessive, self-destructive quest to kill the whale is a modern parable of humanity's ancient struggle against the chaos it cannot control, a battle that ultimately consumes him. From ancient myths of creation to apocalyptic visions of the end, from political theory to classic literature, Leviathan endures. It changes form, but it never truly disappears, because the things it represents are eternal parts of the human experience. It is the storm on the horizon, the stock market crash, the pandemic that sweeps the globe, the darkness on the edge of town. It is the lurking suspicion that the order we've built is fragile, and that the deep, chaotic waters of reality could rush in at any moment. So, what is Leviathan really? It is a creature woven from the threads of myth, biology, and theology. It is a real animal, exaggerated by the awe and terror of ancient mariners. It is a symbol of the primordial chaos that God conquered to create the world. It is a political metaphor for the power needed to hold society together. It is a theological adversary whose final defeat will usher in an age of peace. It is the untamed abyss, both in the world around us and within our own hearts. The story of Leviathan is ultimately a story of hope. It acknowledges the reality of chaos, fear, and the overwhelming forces that seem bent on our destruction. It gives a name and a face to our deepest anxieties, but it does not leave us there. It insists that this chaos does not have the final word. It tells of a power greater than the monster, a sovereign creator who set the boundaries of the sea, and who can pull the beast from the depths with a hook. Promises that one day the battle will be over. The monster will not just be slain but transformed. The ultimate symbol of fear will become the centerpiece of a feast, its very substance providing nourishment for a new world. The journey to understand Leviathan takes us to the murky bottom of the ancient sea, to the bloody battlefields of political philosophy, and to the glorious final banquet at the end of time. It is a monster that reveals more about humanity than it does about the deep. It is the enduring myth that helps us navigate the turbulent waters of our own existence, reminding us that even in the face of the most terrifying chaos, there is a promise of order, a hope for victory, and a reason to believe that the darkness will not overcome the light. The sea is deep and the monster is real, but the story of Leviathan tells us that the one who made the sea is always and ultimately in control.